what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Brothers in Tech is a weekly podcast focused on personal and home technology, helping provide you, our fellow brothers and sisters in tech, with some information, assistance, and recommendations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brothers in Tech here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, and off to my right on the visual screen here is my brother, Brian Jackson. Brian, how you doing? It's been a while.
Well, it has. I've been logging in every week for the last few months, and keep hoping that you'd show up. And
sorry,
I haven't seen you. Haven't talked to you. It's been weeks, man.
I really should have dropped you a note or something to let you know these last 4 or 5 weeks that we weren't going to record. We were taking a little break, but I guess I assumed you kind of picked up on that after a while.
I don't know. I had so many suggestions I wanted to give, and just talked to my computer myself. And so,
well, thank you for being persistent, Brian, and still checking back in, even though I think it's amazing that here we are recording on a different night of the week and you still found your way here.
Oh, I've been in there every night. I've been there every night.
Right? And you just hopping in here, waiting to see when I'd show up and we can record an episode. So,
yep. He's here. He's here. Yeah.
That's really sweet. That's great.
Well, it's good, man. I'm glad to be back at this. It's been a long time.
Well, we're changing things up a little bit. All of our usual watchers, we put this out live, but a lot of people watch it after the fact. We're putting it out on Sunday night. It's a little different, even nighttime, and we're doing a little later, hour-wise, about an hour later than normal. Just trying to change things up and trying to accommodate some schedules on our ends as well. So it just seems we'll see how this goes as far as a live recording time, but we're still putting this out as an audio podcast this week, no matter what. And something else we're going to kind of throw out to everybody too. Since we took a little break, we did some soul searching. We did some kind of reevaluation. I was sitting out in my Zen garden, kind of just, really waiting to hear the messages of what we should do with our show and what kind of any changes we need to make. And it came to us.
Again, that would have been really good to know as well. So I was sitting here waiting to continue, and you're out reinventing the show. So
I'm totally reinventing, and you're just ready to go with the same old. But we are we've always talked technology on this show. We get together, we talk about different forms of technology. We've tried to be fairly universal with our technology, even though you're talking about all different computing platforms and all different makers of different computing devices. But we've always said, and we've always kind of somewhat apologized for it, it's like we're still going to lean a little heavy on the Mac and Apple side, because that is where you and I, Brian, both live day to day. We are Mac users, we are Apple product users, and we find ourselves just talking more and more about Apple and Mac products when we get together on the show. So we have made a decision that, going forward, we're still a tech show, but we're really going to go ahead and put our stake in the ground and say we are a Mac Apple kind of centric show in what we talk about.
Yeah, we're leaning in. We're leaning in.
We're just going for it. We're saying this is who we are. Accept us for who we are. We hope you will. It doesn't mean that we're only going to talk Apple and Mac products, but we want to talk about the kind of the computing lifestyle that surrounds Apple products and Mac products. So we're still going to talk home automation. We're still going to talk streaming services and entertainment channels and other things with technology. And a lot of the technology we talk about may be things that could be used on Windows or Linux or other systems as well. But we're saying, this is primarily going to be Mac and Apple discussions, or at least that be the core foundation of what we're talking about, just because that's where we are. It's where you and I, Brian, spend our time. It's what we know best. They always say, if you're going to do something like this, make it about something you enjoy. And I think we like talking about Apple and Mac products and software and ways that it can impact our world. So we're just going to focus on that.
No, I think it's great. Yeah, I'm all in, and we are not sponsored by Apple, although we are totally up for that
yet.
That's right. We're
Although
totally up for that.
Hold up. They did send me in the mail my Vision Pro, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that out if that's okay.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Why don't you hang on? Yeah.
They
hang
asked
on. Wait.
talk
Wait.
about it.
Wait.
Can we? Oh, you want me to wait and bring it out later?
Yeah. Why don't you wait? Okay.
Just
a little bit? Let's not totally, derail into that.
Oh, let me put it back in its box. There it goes. Okay, it's back. We'll bring it out later. So now with all the preamble stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to discuss today in this episode. Apple had their Worldwide Developers Conference just last week. This is their big annual event where they invite developers from all around the country and world to come to their headquarters, and they do a program to showcase all of the new products or system updates that are going to be coming out in the next few months.
Yeah.
Between now and really the end of the year. So we're going to hit those. We're going to talk about some of those updates here. But also there was a new product, actually a whole new platform that was introduced at this event that we're going to cover later in the episode as well. Something that was very heavily rumored and heavily expected, and it did come true in the Worldwide Developers Conference. We're going to talk about the headset. Everybody's probably heard about it, but we're still going to talk about it and dissect it a little bit later in the show. But we want to talk about some other really interesting and exciting and kind of noteworthy updates first that Apple announced. So Brian, right off the bat, just for anybody who's never watched one of these keynote presentations that Apple puts together, it's not like it used to be where it was a live performance and back to the Steve Jobs day where just put on a real great show and a live audience. These are all now pre-recorded videos that basically when people come to Cupertino to the headquarters, they're sitting and watching a screen at a venue, and just like we are at home watching it live on the internet. I don't like them as much. I mean, I miss the in-person keynote presentations. Just something about them were just so much more, I don't know, so much more enticing. But I do agree that with a list of things like what they announced at this one, it would have been a little challenging to do all of this in a in-person on stage keynote.
That would have been a 3.5 hour keynote easily.
As it was, this was a
and everything.
2-hour video, still pretty long in terms of a video presentation to watch. But they jumped right in first up with talking about some new hardware. So Brian, let's just kind of hit what they announced on the hardware side. What they mentioned.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, Alan. I think this was probably the least exciting of the announcements that they made. But still good to know that there is, the hardware is continuing to move forward. There's a new MacBook Air, which is coming out as a 15-inch MacBook Air, which I think is exciting. It's a great look. It looks a lot like the kind of MacBook Pros that have come out recently. They've kind of gotten rid of the bezel design or the kind of angled design of the Air to try to make it super slick up front, and I think it's good. I mean, obviously the hardware that they put into this is going to be incredibly snappy compared to the previous Airs. So you got the M2 chip, which is going to be nice. The battery life obviously is really good for this kind of device.
Yeah, and that's just so everybody's aware too. That is really one of the biggest selling points of the MacBook Air. It is the number one selling laptop in the world as far as an individual SKU branded laptop. It is the number one selling laptop. Doesn't mean Apple
coming with stats. Look at you.
Yeah, look at me. I'm all prepared.
Did some research.
And the reason it's such a a strong selling laptop is the price is pretty good for a Mac laptop. I think they start at what'd they say? $1,099.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, no, the 15 is at $1,299. 15 inches, $1,299.
Yeah.
It is super light, 18 hours of battery life. That is really the reason people buy this. Is it's a powerful laptop that's super light and easy to carry, and it lasts all day and into the night easily. So the MacBook Air is a great machine. You pretty much have the MacBook Air, or you have on the laptop side, or you have a MacBook Pro. That's kind of your two sides now. So the Air is for anybody who doesn't need a Pro. They don't need quite the heavy duty side of the Pro, but they still want a good Mac laptop, and this is absolutely a good one for it.
No, I think it's great. If you don't need some of the peripherals, if you don't mind dongles, if you're, wanting pretty much to be something that you're carrying around and going to meetings with, going to work on the bus, that sort of thing, this is the form factor for a Mac.
This is it. Yep, absolutely. Yep. And now with a 15-inch screen, it's a little more viable for some people who really wanted that larger screen and was kind of forced to have to go with a MacBook Pro to get the larger screen up until now. So,
right. Love seeing the MagSafe, continue to be brought back. I know that's there for the Pro recently, but for a long time they were doing the plug-in USB-C, which I love the magnetic power that. Agreed. Something this light that you're going to be moving around a lot. It's just smart to have. So. Yeah. So no, I think this is it's exciting. It's good to have that form factor continue. And I think they've hit a pretty good stride with that. There's also the Mac Studio, which was the, Alan, I don't have any experience with the Mac Studio, but I think it is kind of the professional version of a Mac, but not to the crazy extreme of the Mac Pro, which we'll show in just a minute.
I think what they realized with this, and we're going to talk about the Mac Pro in a second, when we say Mac Pro in a moment, that truly is the term professional for that is really a much smaller subset of people doing some extremely high-end computing work. The Mac Studio is, honestly, if I wasn't a laptop guy, this is the computer I would be using. Yeah. I'm, producing video work. I'm producing graphic content. I'm developing and producing media. This is a great desktop computer for doing that. And it has, like a smart media card built in the front. It's got USB-C ports all over the place, tons of connectivity on the back. It's kind of what you want from a good, solid desktop, powerful computer. And it is super fast with the M2 chip, both the Max and Ultra version you can choose from. Performance-wise, it's great. No, it's not the Mac Pro, but not a lot of people need the Mac Pro. This is for everybody else. And this has been a pretty good selling computer for them. I think it's good. I'm still a bit confused by the lineup, right? So if you're going for a desktop and you're not going for the all-in-one iMac, that has the screen and everything as well, you've got the Mac Mini, which has recently been updated, which is still a great device. You've got the Mac Studio, which is kind of the amped up Mac Mini, right? It's the same form factor, but larger. It's got more ports. It's basically beefed up, since neither one of those were expandable, right? Neither one of those would you be adding new cores to, which you wouldn't be adding additional hard drives except external. And then you're going all the way up to the Mac Pro. So the Mac Mini and Studio still kind of confused me a little bit. It's almost like the Pro version of the Mac Mini, but yet Mac Pro is the real kind of that's the one that people. Well, I think if you're wanting to the whole reason. Exchange things. I think that's the reason they brought out the Mac Studio, is because there was basically on the desktop, you had your Mac Mini, you had the iMac, which I still think is kind of on a camp on its own. That is all-in-one. That is just a singular purpose,
one-stop shop. Sure. Right.
But you had your Mac Mini, and then you had this huge gap all the way to the Mac Pro. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's where the Studio fills it. I feel like it's comparing it to the laptops. The Mac Mini is the MacBook Air. The Mac Studio is the MacBook Pro. Okay. We don't have an equivalent for the Mac Pro on the MacBook Pro laptop, but that's okay, because I think that kind of level of work you're going to be doing on a Mac Pro, there's not really a laptop equivalent.
That form factor is not going to do it, right? Yeah.
So that's kind of my feeling of it. We've got 5 quadrants of desktop or laptop computers, 3 on the desktop side, 2 on the laptop. But that Mac Pro, which, here I'll go ahead and just flip it up since we're talking about it. The Mac Pro is kind of in a class of its own. And also it's that way because of price too. It's $7,000. I mean, there is not many people that need this level of computer, but the people who do need it, they know they need it, and they'll pay the money to get it. So,
right.
Nobody listening to the show, I'm going to guess right now, is probably in the Mac Pro market. We're not. I'm not in the Mac Pro market at all. Nowhere near it. But I'm just happy that Mac continues to have a great array of products to fit different needs. I really do. And they're all on the Apple Silicon chips now, meaning every computer they're selling right now is powered by their own chips. They have phased out the use of the Intel chips on all devices. I think the Mac Pro was one of the holdouts for a while. It was still the Intel chip. Now they've rolled out the M1 or the Silicon, the M2 chip for the Mac Pro. So now their whole line, laptops and desktops, are all powered by their own Silicon chips.
And that's just great news, right? I mean, there's no downside to that, right? I mean, and for Mac users, that is exactly what you want. You want everything to be kind of designed with performance in place, and they're making their chips to do what they want their systems to do. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's hardware. I mean, like I said, Brian, like you said, it's not, we won't spend a lot of time on it, but they did have some good products come out. Nothing revolutionary that we've talked about so far, but let's move on to talk about software updates, because that's where I think we have a lot of.
Yeah, this is where a lot of stuff happened. And for people that were super excited about the possibility of the headset and all of that, this, I think, probably caught some good attention, or maybe some people might have overlooked some of the cool things that came about here. But, we basically had OS updates for both the Mac, for the iPad, for the watch, and for the phone. I guess there was a little bit of an update on the Apple TV, but that was kind of built in with some of the other stuff. But
sure.
So I think let's focus a little bit on kind of, for me, Mac OS. There was some cool things here, not earth-shattering things. No. Yeah, I wasn't seeing things that were going to make my life a lot different. Some of the things I do think were pretty cool, Alan. I don't know. I really like the idea of the video conferencing, but that was just an enhancement piece.
Let's show that here.
Yeah.
Here we go. So the idea with the video conferencing, just to make sure I'm right on this, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong here. The idea is that they've built in a technology into the Mac operating system that when you are using a camera to be a part of a video conference, and I'll go ahead and say this is not just on FaceTime, which is Mac's own video conferencing. This would apply to Zoom and Teams and anybody else you should use. It gives you some capabilities to use a presenter overlay. So the idea that you could actually have your screen, if you're sharing like a presentation or your desktop screen, you could actually have it behind you. So it actually knows how to key out your body and put your screen behind you. So that is actually what people would see on the other side of the Zoom or FaceTime call. Or doing like over here on the right, doing a picture in the corner of your presentation.
Yeah.
So some of those effects that, you might be able to pull off in certain video conferencing apps with some plug-in tools and other features, but this is native built into the Mac OS now. So you can use it on any video conferencing platform. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. The fact is what it's doing is creating a new video stream, right? I mean, the video itself, which is coming from, your Mac or the Apple side, that could be fed into Zoom, is just going to have a lot more options to it. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, initially when this first was presented, I was thinking, oh Lord, they're going after Zoom. They're going to have to try to take over for Zoom. And then they said, and this can be used in all of those platforms, which I think is fantastic.
Well, I'll tell you, Brian, I know you and I are the same in that we still have a lot of Zoom calls or Teams meetings and all that.
Yep.
I think this is super smart that Mac put this as a kind of universal for any video conferencing app that you use on the Mac, because now when we jump onto a call and we start using these effects, everybody else who's not a Mac user is seeing this is like, what? How are you doing that?
Yeah.
And how can I do that on my end? And the answer is, well, if you have a Mac, it's built in on the new system.
Yeah, that's going to be super slick.
It's a good promotional tool, I think, for Apple to show, because it is obviously you're interacting with a lot of people that many of them are not going to be Apple users, and that's fun to show them those technologies. So
yeah,
good.
So I thought that was exciting to me, just because I do spend so much time on those meetings that anything that can kind of enhance the usability of that, I think would be great.
Yeah. Now there were widgets also. Is that when we mentioned that really quick? I'm trying to find the widgets on the screen here. I know they mentioned it somewhere.
Way up.
Oh, here they are.
There we go. Yeah.
So widgets to your desktop. I actually think there's some good value here. Right now on the Mac operating system, you can have widgets that kind of pop out from your side. If you slide over to the side of your screen, you have a little pop-out tray, and these widgets are like your world clock, your calendar widget, just to show you upcoming things, maybe a photo widget showing you recent photos or weather. So these can actually now be added right to your desktop, not having to wait to be accessed by using a slide out panel on your side. So you can arrange them and place them on your screen wherever you want them to be. What I thought was nice too is that from what I've saw in the demo and what they described, again, we have not played with the software to know how it works exactly, but what they're saying is that if you are interacting with another application on your desktop, like if I have Microsoft Word open, these widgets that are on your desktop will kind of fade out and be a little muted, or maybe kind of like black and white or grayscale. And then when you come back to your desktop and roll over, they kind of pop up again. So they're not going to just float and be in your way and kind of be prominent while you're doing other things on your computer.
Yeah. Yep.
So, which is something I would expect Apple would do, make it kind of where, they're there, but they're not going to overwhelm you. Oh yeah. Here's a good example on that right-hand side picture where you see them just kind of ghosted out or grayed out when you're using another application on your computer, which is great.
Well, to me, I'm really excited about this because I don't know about you, Alan, but my menu bar has gotten completely overloaded, right? I've got so many things up in the menu bar that I use for information, weather, battery life, calendar, upcoming things, that this now provides just another way of having kind of your dashboard, right? And that's the way I'm looking at it. I want my computer to be my dashboard. When I jump on it, I want all the information accessible without having to move around and do a lot. So this is going to be helpful. I mean, it feels a little bit like sticky notes was for a while, where they would allow you to put them around and they would kind of stay there. But I think it's going to be nicely done. In a way, think of it as you're really changing desktops, right? Your desktop image now has information capable for it. So when you look at your desktop, you're getting a lot more information out of it, which I think is which is great. So,
but I think you're right. There wasn't tons more on the Mac side. No. It was some gradual, nice enhancements, but there was no show-stopping. Wow, this is huge. This is big news on the Mac OS. So I do think it's a little bit of a light year on updates for the Mac OS this year. Yeah. Let's flip over to iPad. Let's talk about iPad OS. So also here, a few updates that are iPad specific. I know we're going to hear most of the updates that are applicable when we get to iOS here in a moment. But on the iPad itself, Brian, there were a couple of items there. The lock screen. Tell me about the lock screen. What's happening with that?
Well, I think they're taking the kind of the first step that the iPhone took recently, which is to allow you to have information on your lock screen. So when you pick up your phone, before you even unlock it, you can still see information, your upcoming events and all of that. And we're pretty limited with those right now. What do we have? Two, but maybe up to 4 if you do the small ones or something like that you can put on your iPhone.
Yeah, if you do the small little widgets, you can do 4. Or else you do 2 blocks. Yeah, I mean, it's very limiting. But it's a small screen. I get it. That's what they gave us the room for. As you can see, even from this screenshot I'm showing, the one with Saturn on it, there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 6 widgets on there right now. So there's going to be a little more real estate to put in some different widgets on the lock screen.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I will say that I don't use my widgets on my phone nearly as much as I thought I would. Yeah. I thought it would be like, this is great. But I think until they open it up to you, can do a lot more, and you can reconfigure that lock screen to have, 5 or 6 different things on there that you like, then it's not going to be as useful. So it may become more useful on the iPad. I thought that...
this is what I was going to mention. Because again, the widgets on the little lock screen is fine, but I think we found with the phone, I don't use the items on my lock screen as much as I thought, like you. However, having widgets, interactive widgets on the home screen of the iPad, that starts to get very interesting to me, because what you can basically do at this point is turn your iPad into almost like a status board.
Yeah, like a control center
dashboard
something.
when you open it up. So it's like have every widget up there. Like if you've got your music widget and you just want to play music from it, you've got your weather to view. You've got like your HomeKit, different buttons if you wanted to kind of flip those on and off. And
I thought you would get excited about that.
Yep. Yeah, it's not just a widget that opens up the home app and goes to it. I can actually turn on and off lights from a widget on the homepage of the iPad. So, there's a lot of times, Brian, where, that's all my iPad is basically, I just kind of use it as I need to get quick hit information and I'll go to a web page or I'll go to an app to get it. If I could just open up my iPad and already have my home screen configured with all these different widgets, and that's where I spend 90% of my time on the iPad. I could see that use application pretty easily.
No, I think it's great. And the examples you're showing here, and I know people that are listening aren't able to see this, but the visual example here has reminders, has, the home, turn your light on and off, has music, has weather. The idea of reminders, right? So that, sure, it's great to show me here's what you have to do, but if I want to check those off, I really don't like the current setup of, well, I touch it, I go to reminders, then I start working with it. If it's simply touch it, right, and touch it and check it off, I need to be able to do that. So I'm super happy that the interactivity of those widgets is being useful now, as opposed to simply just a gateway to get to the app.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's going to be big. And we'll go ahead and say this is also capable on iOS, right?
Yeah, you can obviously put widgets on your home page or on any page on your phone now, but they were never what would they consider to be truly interactive.
Yep.
Which is what's now available on iPad and iPhone, iOS.
And iOS, yes.
I think it's going to be a lot more visibly interesting on the iPad just because of the real estate you have to work with. But yeah, same functionalities on your iPhone as well. That's great.
Yeah. No, I personally think I'm going to use it even more on the iPhone, right? Just being able to see something like reminders and all of that. So
I know you wanted to mention PDF, and I'm looking to see. Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Notes. Okay, so Brian, what's going on with PDF?
So I tell you, I was excited about this, but also a little bit sad because I find that for me, I do a lot of PDF work, and that I'm getting signatures on PDFs. I'm, getting contracts set up and DocuSign and all of these processes that I've worked with in the past. And it seems like every year there's been another way of doing it. Another company's doing it, Adobe's doing it, and then DocuSign's doing it. And then, Google started doing it. Well, Apple's doing it as well. And just knowing how Apple does things like this, it's going to become more of a standard. So what's really nice is they're allowing kind of you to set up fillable PDFs, which pretty much Adobe had kind of the market on for a while. Adobe was allowing you to create boxes for toggles for, so if you're asking someone's name, they could type it in. If you're asking for them to do a drop down and choose, the grade level that they're in. So now Mac's allowing you to do that even in preview, which is great. I am a little I'm concerned about the cross-platform nature of it. I'm still going to need to see it in action. If I send one of these to someone with a PC, what happens? Someone opens it in Adobe. What happens? Is it going to work? Because I know it doesn't work the other way. I know when Adobe sends me something and I open in preview, they don't operate the same way. So yeah, but I'm excited. Obviously, I wanted us to bring this up in iPad, even though it's available in Mac and as iOS as well, because I find that having the pencil and that form factor of the iPad is where signing things, creating those documents, filling those documents out, I think really becomes incredibly useful. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see it in action and see if it really does live up to what I think it could be. So.
Well, I think there's a lot of other iPad updates, but those are ones we found to be fairly notable and interesting.
Yep.
Now, a lot of the things we're going to talk about here in the iOS update in a moment, many of those will apply to the iPad. That's one thing I did notice about how updates are happening this year, and I think last year was a little bit too, is it used to be that there was updates for the iPhone, updates for the iPad, updates for this. And you're seeing a lot more of those blend together, and where it's really a universal, like platform wide update that just happens to be affecting iOS and your iPad OS, which is nice. I like it when they all operate together and they have the same functionality across the devices. I never liked it when there's a feature on the phone that's not available on the iPad or vice versa.
Right.
So I like to see a little more parity, and they're getting closer with it this year for sure. Now the watch did get some updates. The latest version, Watch OS 10, they announced. And Brian, there's a whole nother way, kind of a new interface or new way of operating the watch that they introduced, which are calling the Smart Stack.
And I'll be honest with you, I haven't thought through this and really kind of dug into some of the specific use cases, but it seems to me that what they're trying to do is make it easier for you to get the information that you need to get, and also get additional information from what you normally could have gotten from a static situation. So, Alan, what you're showing here is, currently for those who have an Apple Watch, if you press the long button on the side, you end up getting kind of your, what do they call that, Alan? That's your cards or something.
It's like your app switcher kind of.
App switcher, yeah. So you scroll through it and you see like little cards of all your apps that you wanted, almost like your favorites, right? These are the ones I want to get to quicker.
Or ones you've recently accessed or something like that, right. I think too, yeah.
The problem with it has always been that to do that, you're going away from your home screen, you're going away from the actual watch itself, and now it looks like they're trying to integrate that with kind of portions of the watch face. So, you'll have these switchable, kind of scrollable little cards for your apps that only take up about half of your watch screen. Right. So I can still see my time, I can still see my date, but yet also scroll through what I want to get to. So I think that's a much better interface when you start interacting. That's why those complications were really important when you started getting buttons that you could do on your home screen, because nobody wants to go away from the watch in order to try to find what you want. They want to be able to go to those things quicker. So I think that's a really good move. I don't know if it's perfect yet. I still think they could do a little bit better with that, but it's certainly better than what we have right now. So,
along with
cycling came up.
I was going to say, along with rolling out that new interface, they spent a lot more of the time of the updates talking about things that are very activity driven, like cycling, and then talking about hiking as well. Cycling had some new enhancements to make it to where you can now be tracking your metrics as you're on a bicycle, which it's got kind of different power zone workout views put together for that, which all very good. I think for cyclists, there's some good opportunities there.
Well, let me just say in that they are really, I think, going after Garmin now. So Garmin's been the leader of this for years, right? They've been the leader in terms of the fitness watches, the outdoor watches, especially even the cycling computers. And one of the beauties of the Garmin was that you could get all these other external devices. You could put something on your pedal, which then measures the revolutions, and it sends that information up to your watch. So now I'm getting not just like how far have I gone, but how many cycles did it take me to get there, right? How fast am I pedaling? Well, now Apple is starting to open that up a little bit. So it's going to have the ability to read from these other external devices. And that's just, makes this an actual cycling watch. Whereas before it wasn't a cycling watch. You could do it for cycling, but all you were going to get was heart rate and distance. And that's not what cyclists really want. They want, rate of cycling, the pedaling, the all of this. So I think that's good. That opens that up. I was really excited about the hiking because I thought there was some super unique, cool things here. Alan, do you want to chat about that?
Yeah, they definitely seem to lean in more on the hiking side. I'll tell you a couple things that stood out right away. I think they have announced the ability to download some maps for offline use, which means that as you're hiking, I know that's kind of covered in the maps a little bit later, but it is something that applies to here. So that way you actually have trail information downloaded kind of on your phone available to you, or on your watch available to you. And that the whole trail integration, I use an app called All Trails right now. Whenever I go anywhere and I track any trails, it has all the information about how easy it is or how much time it may take to do the trail. Well, now Apple's rolled out a platform for tracking and collecting all that trail information too. So it is kind of trying to kill all trails, but having it built into your watch and built into the iOS experience in general is great. I love the compass view. I think that's compass just great. Let me just kind of back up what I think is really helpful about this. Yes, you can see kind of a 3-dimensional view of elevation that may be impacting your trail as you're going. What to me was the most fascinating is that it will mark for you where you last had cellular connectivity. So that way, if you needed to backtrack for any reason to get to where you could actually make a cell phone call or get data, you could see it on this topographical map and be able to know how far you need to go back to be able to get that signal. So, you can make a judgment call whether you want to go back to do that or if it's worth it or not. Same thing with being able to issue an SOS call. You see on a visual map, the last place where you could make an emergency call based on the data system, the phone system, or the whatever that system is called.
The satellite,
satellite information that pushes out your SOS signals. So just having all that together, plus you can kind of map and see on a visual map like this where your home base is or where your campsite is.
It's fantastic.
It's really cool. So it's really, really neat. For me though, knowing that, I could actually look up a couple of trails and have them kind of loaded on my watch and then go take that hike and just know how to navigate to the starting point of it and know a little information about the trails I'm getting ready to go on, I think is great. I mean, I never like seeing a good app get killed because Apple rolled out a new feature, but I also like it when Apple has it built into a system I'm already using without me having to rely on a third-party app to do it, as long as the implementation is good. And that's why I always hope it is. But
what do they call that, Alan? Sherlocked? Is that what they
Sherlock an app, meaning the background of that was there was a great app that was a search utility on your Mac called Sherlock. But then pretty soon afterwards, Mac rolled out a really robust search on their own Mac platform.
Their Spotlight.
And the term was, Spotlight. And the term was something got Sherlocked, meaning it got basically wiped off the planet because Apple built in that capability themselves.
Alan, I just want to mention one real quick thing on the last few things that we talked about. So cycling, hiking, realize that these apps advancements would not have been done had they not created the Ultra watch. The Ultra watch, the Mac Ultra or the Watch Ultra, what is it? I don't know what they call that. Is it just Mac Ultra? The Ultra
Big Mac Daddy watch? I don't know.
Big Mac Daddy watch. Because for anybody who has been kind of, does a lot of things outdoors, long hikes, cycling, camping, realize that Apple Watches were just not great things for that because the battery life didn't last long enough, right? You just didn't have the battery life to actually go and do long bike rides because it was taking so much power. I could go maybe an hour on a bike ride, cycling with an Apple Watch, and that's it. You certainly can't do a marathon, right? But the Ultra watch, when they created that, where the battery life was super long, they could put it in this activity mode so that it was not taking a lot of power. That's when they could open up things like hiking apps, cycling apps. The workouts take a whole big step up. So I think, there's a method to their madness, right? That some of these things they've been able to do for a while, but yet haven't really pushed it out because they didn't have a device that made sense to do it, right? Yeah. If anything, it would have just worn down the watch so quick that people would have gotten frustrated with it. So I think that's kind of exciting.
I mean, they rolled out some other things too, mental health, kind of a nice mental health app to kind of help track your mood and how you're feeling about things. So it can kind of help you keep tabs on your state of mind and also improve well-being in general. I thought that was kind of some nice demos that they showed there. Also, same thing with vision, trying to go ahead and help anybody that's, especially in kids, where it's both encouraging them on how much daylight they're getting and access to daylight for their eyes.
And getting outside, getting away from the screen, all of that. Yep. Yeah. That's really good.
So some nice things on health. And then they didn't really mention a lot with Fitness Plus during the keynote, but I know that's something they continue to push with that as well. So the watch,
Yeah.
a decent little interface upgrade, and then some nice features on very physical activities like the hiking and biking. So yeah.
All right, Brian, let's get to the big daddy.
Yeah, let's get to the big stuff. iOS, and by iOS, most people think this is iPhone, which is true. iOS kind of covers for sure the iPhone, and is kind of the basis for a lot of the other platforms. So many of these updates are ones that are also rolling out to the iPad and so forth, but they're really going to kind of shine here on the iPhone primarily. Brian, there's a lot of these. Let's start first. How about let's talk about messages, because I think messages have a lot of attention here. I'm going to get to the messages here.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about messages because I really felt like Apple has leaned into messages super heavy. I mean, they want this to be They want this to be where you are, right? Yeah, they want this to be where you are and how you can communicate with people. There's a part of me that cringes thinking that we're going totally into messages as being our world. But what I do like is that they're making that process a little bit more useful and potentially even allowing you to have more personality within them, which I think is kind of a helpful thing. So I'll mention just a couple of things, Alan. One of the things I loved was, the fact that now if you go ahead and scroll down, I'm my most important part was, I never use audio text. I mean, I never do the voice text. I don't know if you do, Alan.
No, I don't.
And when someone gives it to me, and by the way, what we're talking about is when you send a text of your voice, you press the little microphone button and send a voice. I have a few friends that do that, and I have to say it annoys the crap out of me. When I get it, I'm like, oh, because you've got to realize, where am I? Can I play this where people are going to hear this? Do I have any idea what they said? Could they have said something really rude? Do I need to go get it? Put my headphones in.
It breaks the whole flow of what text or what messaging
what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, texts are supposed to be kind of this, hey, look at it when you get a chance, when you're ready, respond. So what I love is that, and we can talk about maybe a couple versions of this, Alan, but they have used this transcription piece to where someone sends you an audio text and it will transcribe it and show you the words so that you don't have to listen to it. I love that, right? If I want to listen to it, maybe hear like someone singing me happy birthday and I actually want to hear that, wonderful. But I know that I want to hear it when I see what is in it. And if someone's actually giving me content, I want to see the content to know whether or not I want to get out of my meeting or if I want to go and get another room to actually hear this. So I think that's fantastic. They're using transcription. We don't have to listen to someone that left a message that way. And maybe we should just go ahead and say that the parallel to this, which is voicemail.
I was going to say, I'm going to scroll back up to voicemail because it is very much a similar thing there. So with voicemail now, this is outside of messages. This is your phone app. But when you get a voicemail, it is actually live voicemail. So what that means is it's actually going to do live transcribing of what that person is saying on the voicemail they're leaving for you right now. And you will see that popping up on your screen as text. So that way, imagine, you get a phone call from a number you don't recognize. It goes to voicemail, and then you see the voicemail start popping up and you realize, oh, wow, that's my mother calling from some other random phone, or maybe she's somewhere and she's calling, but you see the message. Now, at that point, you could choose to hop in and actually pick up the call, and it will interrupt their voicemail, and then you can talk to them. That is really great, because there's plenty of times I will let things go to voicemail because it's a number I don't recognize. And then as soon as I hear the voicemail, like, later on after I play it back, I'm like, I really wish I'd known that was them. I would have taken the call. And this is great. Or think about too, Brian, if you're in a meeting or something else, and you don't want to answer your phone and something goes to voicemail, but then you see from the voicemail text popping up, oh, this is an emergency. Then it's like right away, this is something I need to go address. I think it's genius. I'm so excited about this.
No, I mean, this to me is as big of a leap as when Mac originally started the voicemail, being able to actually kind of have digital voicemails as opposed
visual
to
voicemail, they called it.
Visual, exactly. This is huge, right? This is huge. My only question is kind of the actual usability of it. I know that right now, as they're showing on the screen, it's going to come up and show, here's the transcription of what's happening, and you can jump in. What I'm wondering is when they leave that message, is it going to come up as a notification like it does now to say, hey, you got a voicemail, but will it say voicemail and then you can pull it down and actually read the voicemail there?
Well, I'm sure you got to be able to see it after the fact too. Because it's just like right now.
Can you just turn it into put it in messages as well? Like if it comes in as voicemail, could it slide into messages so you see, because that's where most people are going when they get out of a meeting or whatever, they're looking at messages, right?
Well, right now, Brian, it already does transcription of your already recorded voicemails. So you do get that.
But you don't see those in the notifications. Is what I'm
you're saying like you want to see in the notification,
like you would on the messages,
right? Or so of that.
Like if you send me a message and I have the very top part that comes, this is Alan sent a text that says, hey, checking in, are you there? Right. I don't just want to see phone voicemail. I want to see phone voicemail from so-and-so and maybe the first line of what they're saying drop down in my notification. If I see
I'd be surprised if that wasn't an option that you could turn on.
I would hope so. Yeah.
So
this is great. The only downside is that this means more people are not going to answer their phone.
Well, you better believe it. I will never answer my phone again. Never answer my phone. And if I see certain people, maybe a brother or two, then, it's going to be a perfect excuse. I can just tell everybody I had this feature turned off. I'm like, oh, I didn't see your voicemail because I turned off that function. And sorry. Yeah, I think it's great.
All right, let's jump around. What else?
Here, Brian? Let's see.
Let's talk real quick about this because I have a question about this, Alan, what you have right here. So what they have done, which I think is incredibly cool, is that, Alan, I can decide how my image comes up on your phone when I call you. Yeah. So I could set up my profile, on my own phone. And we kind of do this now where it'll say, hey, their card has been updated. Do you want to update their card based on what they've put in? But now you can actually have a really cool, whether it's your memoji, whether it's your nice picture that shows up whenever someone calls. My only question on this is, do you get to decide whether you allow those, and do you get to preview them or not? Can I set it up so that it's like a shirtless picture of me that shows up on your phone, every time I call, and you really don't have an option other than to see this happen?
I would imagine there's got to be an overriding to it because right now, even I can choose to have a different icon that shows up for you, Brian, than what you're pushing out as your own. I can choose that. So I imagine there's got to be an override or at least a
But I just wonder, the process, will that happen the first time? So I call you.
Is it on a person by person basis? Or
maybe, is it going to come up and say, Brian would like to enable his own picture. Will you allow it? Here's a preview of it. Maybe that would be kind of nice. And then you accept, right?
Because you're right. You could have a very incriminating, embarrassing looking photo of yourself. And if you're pushing that out to people, they don't really have a choice.
That's right.
Whether they see it or not. I could see that being a problem. So there's got to be some sort of, allow this.
I mean, there's
person or.
And I worry a little bit about the kids, right? Because if this is let's say, Alan, you send me something, and then maybe I do have to approve it and say, yes, actually, Alan, I trust Alan. I approve Alan, right? But then you change your picture. Do I get to approve the new one? Or does that mean now you have me, and then you can actually, I'm going into an important meeting, you change it to something stupid. So I worry a little bit about the bullying that could happen, some of the things that could occur with kids, because they're just going to accept anything, right? They're like, oh, yeah, I'll accept all my friends. And then there's going to be some crazy stuff that's happened. So I hope that there's some features in place for that.
I mean, I like it, but you're right. I think all the questions you asked are the right ones to be asking. I'd be curious to see how it actually rolls out. But anytime we can customize kind of what people see of each other and how we present ourselves, I'm all for that.
No, I think it looks so much nicer. It's a great piece. Alan, you missed one piece right there on the messages. If you scroll up, I think this is really slick. The one on the right. So if I'm going to meet you at a party and I tell you, or actually let's do it the other way. Let's say that I'm driving home from a party that I just left your house and you'd like to know whether or not I've gotten home, and I can just click and say, this is where I'm going, notify Alan. I don't have to remember when I get there to text you. You can actually look and see, oh, Brian's actually home. Great. I got notified. Or what I thought was really slick was you have a kid, they're supposed to be coming home. They should be to the party or to the friend's house at a certain time. If they're not making progress like they should be, it will notify you to say they're not getting to where they're supposed to be quick enough, or they're off track, and that lets you know that maybe something went wrong. And I think that's a incredibly cool safety feature. So I would imagine parents would love it. So
it's so great.
Great.
I think it's some great features there with that, with messages. Let's see. I'm going to kind of scroll on through. I don't want to talk about stickers. I think stickers are stupid. I don't want to talk about those. Oh God, more stickers. There's still sticker stuff they're pushing. All right, FaceTime. So what's FaceTime going on? So I can mention one thing really quick. It ties in a little bit with the voicemail that we were talking about before, but yes, this is the feature where on FaceTime now, if you make a FaceTime call to someone and they don't pick up, you can now basically leave them almost like a visual voicemail of yourself. You record a short video or audio message that they can play back just like they could if they missed a phone call from you. So it's like typical phone voicemail, but for FaceTime, which I think it's kind of neat. I think that's kind of fun.
No, I think it's great. Yeah.
Be helpful. It responds now to your hand motion.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're watching on the video, you see there's a guy on the left, he's doing the double thumbs up. iPhone sees that and turns that into a big confetti or
whatever you've said,
fireworks explosion behind you or whatever you share. So it can actually set up different hand gestures to mean different things. And if you do an okay or you do some other thing, that tells iPhone, oh, I'm supposed to do this animation or I do this kind of effect on the screen when we do that.
This is something that Zoom's had for a while. It becomes really annoying when people have that turned on, because you'll get thumbs up when they don't realize they're doing thumbs up and all that stuff. But I think as long as you set it up so that these are motions that I will not normally make, and I'm only going to make them when I want this to happen, then I think it can be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's the one I really I'm very excited about. FaceTime using your Apple TV. So this happens to me, Brian, a lot. I like to do Apple TV or FaceTime calls, and I've got an Apple TV on a big screen here in my den. I really like putting people up on the screen whenever we have family get-togethers or we want to Zoom or FaceTime in other people from other places. But I have to constantly, what I have to do is basically use my phone to do the FaceTime call, and then I just mirror my phone to the screen, which it works okay, but it's not great, and it's still a lot of things to deal with. Now, though, with the latest OS update, you can actually have your iPhone as a camera, and now you can start a call from the Apple TV. There's a FaceTime app that will be on the Apple TV. You start your call from that FaceTime app on the Apple TV, and you can use your phone as the camera. It can actually see your phone as a camera source to use for that FaceTime call, or start it from your phone and then just transfer it to your Apple TV. So basically imagine, your TV screen, that's where you're seeing everybody that you're talking to. They see you through the phone camera, but now you can position that phone camera anywhere you want to get the best view, and you just totally interact with the Apple TV at that point. So I think it's great. Simplistic, but it's great. Yep.
I think it's great too. And I'm going to mention one other little feature that follows the same path, which is that idea of standby, Alan. You saw where you could have your phone turned to the side, and there you go. Yeah. And have it start to be a little bit more like a display screen for your desk or for your nightside table. Here's my thing. So after what you just mentioned with the Apple TV being your FaceTime portal, and then having the phone being a camera, I want to know when Apple's going to create their own version of kind of phone mounts, where they've got some really nice phone mounts where you could snap it on magnet and have it, rotate, follow you around, or have it be on your bedside table, kind of like you and I think both have a different version of a kind of a charger where it can sit there. But it seems like they've got a couple of use cases now where the phone really needs to be mounted, because I don't want to go up and put my phone for an Apple or for a FaceTime on my Apple TV, I don't want to go up and try to tilt it against the wall and then have to go back and be like, can you see me and all this stuff. I want a magnet right underneath my TV that's on the wall, and I go snap.
Oh, I know
it's
coming.
exactly where it's going to be.
You know that's where it's going.
That's where
there'll be third-party developers creating those, but I think Apple will probably roll out one of their own at some point.
And I guess you could take a charger. You could take the charger disc, wrap it around, put it at the bottom of your TV, snap it on as a magnet. But I feel like that's what needs to be there so that you can use these things effectively. So
agreed. Now, I should note this whole standby mode that you were talking about is really cool, but it only really works the way it should with the latest iPhone. I think the iPhone 14, because those are the ones that have the always on screen capability. Any other older iPhone will still go to sleep at a certain amount of time. So even if you have it turned to its side for the standby mode, it's still going to go to black after a while. So, it's.
And do you know it? Will that not work even if you have it on a charger?
All I read,
like they would allow it.
All I understood is that this is only going to work on the 14.
Okay.
Or just because of that capability. So I'm curious. I mean, I know you can turn off and like not have it go to sleep. Your phone. You can turn off on your system preferences to change it to do that. But for some reason, they said that having that always on bright mode.
Well, it's probably the adaptive screen, right? That it does to try to say better. I can get that.
Yeah.
Well, let me mention. Yep. Maybe let me mention, if you're okay with it, one or two other things that are outside of iOS, and then we can jump into the headset. But a couple of things I have to say. One, AirTag sharing is finally possible. And for someone who has a bunch of AirTags, I'm very, very happy about this. I don't think it's going to show up there on the iOS, but
probably not.
But AirTags now, and people have listened to our show in the past when I talked about AirTags. One of the most frustrating parts is, I have an AirTag on my dog's collar, but yet I have to get the notifications only. I cannot share those notifications with someone else. Well, my wife would also like to know if our dog is lost and be able to track her. So now you can actually share AirTags with other people. So you can say, I want this person, my wife, to also have access to this AirTag so that she can track where our dog is. So I think that's a huge thing. There's some people that have concerns about that. If you have a spouse who now maybe wants to track you and now you're giving them access to certain things, but hopefully you have the ability to do that with control. So, and then I think the last thing there that you're going right to that spot, Alan, is the AirPods. I mean, AirPods are taking a huge advancement, which I am excited about. But what they're really trying to do is I think they're trying to get to the point where people never take their AirPods out. I mean, that's honestly what they're trying to do, is put your AirPods in and never take them out except to charge them. Because one of the reasons you take them out now is when you approach someone and you want to talk to them and you pop your AirPods out to talk to them. Well, they're allowing that to happen now. So when you start talking, your music will go silent and your pass-through noise will come in so that you can hear the person you're talking to without taking your AirPods out. I think that's exciting. I love the technology of it, but it also makes me a little nervous, that we're never going to take these AirPods out.
Well, Brian, my question is, if I'm someone, hypothetically, that likes to talk out loud to myself when I'm listening to something on the iPad, on the AirPods, maybe I like to speed rap some of the songs I'm listening to myself. Are the AirPods going to assume that I'm talking to somebody and stop the music?
That's a good question.
That'll be one question. Look, I actually am okay. Actually, this even happened to me today. I had my AirPods on. I was working at my office building, and I had them on because I was the only one there, I thought. And I just left, had them on the whole day. And, somebody came up to me and wanted to talk. And I did find myself having to pop them out and like talk to the person. And then I had to put them back in, start my music back up. Yep. And then I drove home and I realized I still had my AirPods in my ears. Like I didn't really think about it. So it's like the idea of saying, okay, are they just left in if I'm just out and about listening to things, but I'm okay being stopped and having a conversation with somebody, but I can leave them in and not deal with it. I'm really good with that. I think the key is going to be how well does this work? Does it work as realistically as it needs to? because this could be a real annoyance if it doesn't work right, with it stuff fading in and out, or maybe not blocking out the background noise like it should. There's a lot of question marks for me, but I love the demo they showed of it. And the question is just, will it work in that way?
Yeah. I mean, and maybe it has to get to the point where you get another trigger word, right? Like you say, hey, and then all of a sudden it knows that, okay, let's, you're saying hey to somebody. I mean, maybe there has to be some adjustments, but I'm excited for the usability of certain things to be more enhanced and using the technology. So those were my big things, Alan. I don't know if you had any other pieces you wanted to mention before we get to the...
Not offhand. I mean, there's a lot of other little things. I encourage anybody who just wants to kind of see some of the new features that are coming out for these operating systems, go to Apple's website, and what you actually have to do if you want to see the previews of these different systems. I'll give you a little hint here. If you go to the Apple website, if you want to see the latest iPad OS updates that we were just sharing, go to iPad and actually go to iPad OS 17 preview on the drop-down menu. Same with the phone. That's where you get your iOS 17 preview, watch, and so forth. All of them have a preview button. Even the Mac does for Sonoma, their new version of the Mac OS. That's where you can really find some good highlights and examples of what those different new features are going to be on the OSs that they're releasing.
And we should mention those are coming this fall, right?
Coming this fall, which means it could be anywhere between late August and late November, early December. I think they consider fall going up almost into December, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would imagine probably shooting for October or November.
November, probably a good idea there. The one thing I'll just say before we move on to the last topic we want to talk about, Brian, this I have noticed it just seems like a lot of the updates they announced for all of the different OS platforms this year, there was no showstopper. There was no one big feature for any of them that's like, oh wow, they just did this and that's amazing. Now, look, I love the transcribing voicemail. I love the live voicemail. There's some other things that are really cool, but nothing that's going to just grab headlines. All of their updates seem to be more about just enhancing. It's almost like enhancing quality of life, just enhancing usability and just making it to where these devices you want to keep on you and keep using on a regular basis. How do we make that easier to do? And I think that's really where they're kind of honed in on with a lot of these updates. I love the slate of updates. I mean, there's like 8 or 9 different updates they announced. I'm like, I'm going to use that day one. Those are great. This has got me exciting. But it's nothing that the news stories are going to pick up on and say, wow, this is a big revolutionary service or update to any of these devices. I think mainly because they were waiting for that big revolutionary, big major update to come with the one big product update, which is the Vision Pro. We got to talk about this, Brian. I know we're already running longer than we thought, but I don't care. We're gonna talk about this because this is important. Apple did announce it's long coming, rumored. It's been on the rumor mill for quite a while now that they were working on this, and speculated that it was going to be coming out during this conference, and it did. All the rumors had the name wrong. All the rumors were that it was going to be like XR, like OS or XR OS, some of the name like that. But instead, they went with Vision, the Vision OS, and the Vision Pro as the product that we saw announced. Which, first off, I love the name. I think it's great. I think that's a good name. The thing with this device that they showed off is, everybody was speculating whether it was going to be an AR device. Which, remember, AR is this idea that you are looking at the real world through glasses, but the glasses are putting things on top of the real world for you to accentuate your experience. So if you're walking down the street, little directions and map directions may pop up in the corner, but you're still looking at the real world. VR is where you go into a completely virtual environment. You do not see the outside world. You see this space around you, putting you somewhere else in a completely different environment. And I know there were some questions with me as which direction were they going to go. I think I kind of assumed it was going to be a little more AR leaning than VR. But what the Vision Pro actually did was kind of come up with a device that I feel like is actually both. And they're calling it, which I think is also pretty important, spatial computing. is the term they're using for how they're describing this device. They never used VR as a term, virtual reality, anywhere in this keynote or anywhere on this website. Everything is spatial computing. So the idea becomes you put on this helmet, you can choose to interact with the real world. By natively, that's what it does. You're seeing through, it is giving you a visual representation of the real world around you. So it's like you're wearing glasses, but it is putting your computing experience and apps and other things in front of you for you to interact with. So that is the AR side of it.
Yeah.
But gets really interesting in that you can also turn a dial. I'll get to some of this other in a minute. Turning a little small dial on the top of the device will actually tape you into a true virtual environment. They call it, I think they call it environments, where it does take over the entire room and give you, I don't know if it's going to show me an example of that or not, but it actually does take over and give you just like what the Meta, the Oculus, the Quest do, where it's a completely virtual environment around you.
Yep.
Oh, here you go. So that's an example of a virtual
yep.
environment. So again, turning the dial changes that level of experience you get all the way through. You can turn it all the way one way to see everything real world and have everything just laid on top of the real world for you to interact with. You turn it the other way, you've got the full environment, 3D virtual environment around you that you don't see the other things going on in the room around you. So I thought that was a really interesting approach to it, to kind of say we're handling both sides of the coin, but it's not a one or the other. And it's totally up to the user to kind of decide what kind of experience they want to have with this.
Yeah.
So that's, that's what it's called. Spatial computing is the term they're using. And just like you can see from all the screenshots, it is truly putting your typical iOS or typical Mac environment up on the screen in front of you for you to interact with.
Right. Yep.
So anyway, Brian, let's go through some other notes on this. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts as well, and just what you thought about this device. Interacting with this device is all done through your fingers and your eyesight.
Right.
So,
so that I think is fascinating. So just for people to kind of realize the experience, this would mean that if my eyes look at something within this virtual environment, and then I would have my hands maybe down by my side and kind of tap my fingers together or point my fingers together. I've got cameras on the outside of this device that are looking at the world around me. So when it sees that motion, and it doesn't have to be up in the air, like actually grabbing and reaching, it's going to then click on whatever I was looking at, which I think is really, really cool. I mean, it's very cool in that there are tons of eye tracker cameras on the inside of this thing that are watching every minute movement that you're doing within the headset. And, eye tracking is something I have a good deal of experience with. And I'm super excited to see, when you have a head mounted thing, something that doesn't move, you can really get good quality eye tracking. You can actually track someone's eye because the cameras are moving with you. So they take that world out of it and they can watch what your eyes are doing. My only concern, well, I have a number of concerns. One big concern I have is, okay, if this becomes the kind of computing experience that a lot of people are able to do, I just wonder how easy will it be to go between this and a regular computer? Because I think it's one thing if I actually do put my hands up and touch in the virtual world, kind of like some of the other VR experiences do, touching something that's in the virtual world and opening up an app that way, because that transfers back to an iPad pretty easily, right? With an iPad, I'm always going to go and touch the screen in order to make something happen. But when you're getting used to just looking at something and then making the movement, well, now go back to your Mac and you have to look at something and then you have to realize, oh, wait a minute, I got to move the mouse to where my eyes are looking. And then I have to click. Yeah. I just think the back and forth is going to become a challenge. Unless maybe there's a way in which you can change that, right? You can say, oh, no, I'd rather actually use mouse mouse version OS, right? Where maybe I actually move my hand like I would with a mouse, and maybe there's a mouse that comes on the screen. Maybe you could actually turn it that way if you want to keep it more of a regular computing. But
that is one of my I have a couple big questions about this product. And again, we won't see this out in the wild or able for sale until for another 6 or 7 months, probably, at least. So these are going to be questions that are just going to be floating out there until then. My question was, they did say that, you could use this Vision Pro headset as almost like a monitor for your Mac. So if you have a Mac computer that you're interacting with, use this as your way of interacting with your own computer. Now that's fascinating to me, but I'm like you, I need to see how that's going to work in real world application. Can I use mouse and keyboard and just use this now as a big floating screen in front of me?
I mean, that's what I would love to do, honestly.
No, me too. I think that would be great. And if I knew that, that way I could actually work on things. If I just wanted to kind of have my own self-contained space to work on something, I still have my full Mac computer experience here in front of me, and I can pull up all my applications and work with them. Then that would be awesome. My fear is that there's going to be some limitations on that, or it's going to try to force you into that hand gesture mode, which I agree that I kind of want to be able to pick and choose when I use those hand gestures or when I can use a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, which they did say those accessories would be available for you to use. Okay. So you could use those things.
And just think it's easily possible with cameras on the outside of this thing. Alan, that picture you have right there, right? What it's showing, for those that aren't able to see, it's showing someone standing at a standing desk with the headset on and having kind of a floating keyboard in front of them, as well as a big screen, as well as a secondary screen, and all of these things around them. And it looks really, really cool to say, wow, I've got all these screens ahead of me. But I think to myself, okay, there's cameras on the outside. Why not have specialized Mac keyboards that it can recognize, and that information passes through? So I could look down in this virtual world and still see my hands and still see the keyboard, just like I'm typing now. But yet I have all of these screens available. So allowing that information to still pass through so I could use the keyboard effectively. I could still use a mouse, right?
I think that would, no matter what. I mean, they already said that the Bluetooth keyboards could be used. Yeah. This right now, the picture you're seeing on the screen for those watching on the video, that is a real environment. That is him seeing his own desk and all that. He's just seeing the screens in front of it. So if you have a keyboard down in front of you, and as long as it's a Bluetooth keyboard that is working with the Vision Pro, you could be typing and look down on your keyboard and just like you would normally, and it should interact with what you're seeing on the screen above you.
I hope so. Yeah, maybe that's just a mode you turn off, right? But I don't like the idea of the floating keyboard that's in front of him right now.
No. I really think that's more of you're using it and you just happen to be somewhere where you don't have your actual computing gear with you. You have to,
because what I don't want to do is I don't want to have to go and look at every key in order to click those keys, right? To type something, because that becomes work does not happen in that way. So.
Well, Brian, they tried to walk through a lot of use cases for this device. And this is where I think this is really what sets this apart from what I've seen from other devices. The use cases they showcased in the keynote varied from leisure, kind of more recreational use, just reading articles. Watching movies was a big experience they detailed and showcased, which I'm personally extremely excited to watch a movie on something like this and see how that experience is. But then, like we just talked about, they also did a lot with the business side, showing that as a device for work. Yeah. I've never seen a VR helmet of any sort ever marketed as a work device or could be used for work. Now, this is the one I think that's the most subjective. This, I don't know if this is really going to play out like they're saying, where it being a actual device you would use in a work environment. The theater, absolutely. Home theater, yes, that makes perfect sense. I could see people using that. They didn't really talk about gaming with it much at all. They were very light on that, which I was kind of surprised by. Thought there might be some big game announcements of games you would play on the VR helmet, and they didn't really say that. Now, they did say you could play any of your Apple Arcade games and other things on there, but it didn't seem to indicate that the games were there were no new games being announced that were going to be making use of this whole capability that you've got, really. The thing that's probably the most intriguing for me, Brian, is with the spatial photos and spatial videos. So with this headset, you can click a button and take a photo or take a video of what you're seeing through your lens, your eyes. And when you play those back, they actually are in a pseudo 3D world environment because your headset is actually getting some volume information around what you were just taking a photo or video of. So the idea is very much like Minority Report. I don't know if you remember seeing that movie, Brian, the Tom Cruise movie. The idea of playing back your videos inside the headset and actually seeing them in a 3D space. Now, I love this. I'm a video guy. I shoot video. I work with video. The idea of doing this is really, really exciting. But I've also got questions about, is this an experience that's now limited to just within the headset to see or watch? Or if I sent a video I shot on the headset to my Mac or to somebody else, can we get any sense of that same experience? Or is it going to be very limited to a 2D flat video? That's the kind of things I'm curious about. But I love the fact that I could watch them back in the headset, but I'd also want to share them with other people.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I think we got to really kind of contend with when we talk about a device like this is turning a lot of shared experiences into a solo experience for people. Okay.
And that's my biggest concern is with the price, which we haven't gotten to yet, but makes it so that
price is expensive.
Watching a movie. So you mentioned earlier, you're excited about watching a movie on it. I think that sounds great. Well, you're also someone who will go to a movie theater by yourself, which I have never done in my entire life. So, for me, it's like, okay, are we creating a great personal experience for something and removing people from others where the shared experience, are literally are two people going to sit down with these headsets on next to each other and have a different view of the exact same movie and still be able to talk with one another? One, the price is going to limit that, but two, is that really going to happen? Or are we going to be sitting on the couch together, holding hands and each watching our own individual movie?
I've got to think, but Brian, just thinking about Apple's overall architecture and capabilities. I mean, I've got to imagine, and I think they were probably right to not talk about this in the keynote because it does imply that you'd have to buy two of these units if you're both sitting there watching something. But, to watch a 3D movie in true 3D, which is that's what the demos all show, in a huge screen right in front of your face. Yeah, I'd like to be able to experience that with my wife or with my kids, in my house. That would require a headset for each person. But I assume that if you did have multiple headsets, because capabilities like SharePlay and all the ways that they already have things that can be synced together, there's got to be an easy way to say, oh, I'm going to play a movie and we're all going to sit and we can watch it on our headsets, but we're in the same room. We hear each other. We're still there together with it. I mean, the Oculus or the Quest, the Meta Quest headset, which granted I know is a much cheaper, like $500 headset, will allow you to do that. Like you can actually say, hey, grab my friend and we're going to go in the same room and watch the same movie. And I can still hear each other. We can see each other. We can watch the movie together. It's fun. I think the problem is if Apple had brought that up as a demo, the questions automatically become, oh, so now you got to buy two of these things. Which is, like start taking out an extra, mortgage on your house just to pay for.
I mean, let's be honest, Alan. Your situation, what you're hoping they'll do is you're hoping that you can have the headset on and your family can watch it on the normal TV and you guys can all be watching the same movie, but you get the cool experience and they don't.
No, typically what happens in our house is if I'm watching it on the best possible experience and then I'm just shouting out and describing to the other people what I'm seeing. So that way they know, like, by the way, I'm seeing a really cool shot with a really cool creature right now. By the way, just letting everybody know. That's what happens in my house. So, so I have questions, Brian, but I'm here to tell you, I want to hear your thoughts, your overall impression of what you saw. I immediately after watching this keynote started doing some math to figure out how in the world I can save up $3,500 by January. No lies, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm watching this keynote, and there's a moment in this keynote, Brian, or a couple moments where I actually stopped to myself and said, is this a joke? Is this like, this is not real, right? This is not a real product. There's no way this can be a real product that they're going to be selling because it blew me away. Now, look, I know they showed you everything they could to sell this on you before they announced the price, and the price is $3,500. It is insanely expensive. I think from what I saw, it's worth it.
Yeah.
But I'm also not here to say that it's something that everybody should rush out and get, because it's a lot of money, and I don't think it has a universal use case for everybody. There's a lot of factors have to go into place before somebody can decide that this is an environment they want to buy into. People who live on their own and don't need, maybe live in a small apartment and don't have a big giant
independently
screen,
wealthy,
don't have space to do things. What's that?
Independently wealthy.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but I mean, still, even just, hey, look, if I lived in an apartment by myself and I really wanted to have a great home theater experience, but I didn't really have space to do it.
Sure.
Heck yeah, this would be awesome.
No, you're right.
If I did a lot of work in a visual environment where I felt like I could really be productive and work, and I didn't always want to have distractions around me, or I wanted to be able to kind of really focus on what I'm doing, or I didn't want to get a giant big monitor and I want to do my work from here. I think there's a lot of specific use cases for this. My problem with the product, not the problem, but my concern for it is, unlike every other product that Apple puts out, this is not a universal, everybody can want this. Okay? Right. It's going to be limited. And because you're still having to put a giant ski goggle on your head, you are having to shut yourself away from certain aspects of the rest of the world. There's a lot of things you gotta do if you want to buy into this, but I'm on board. I'm ready for it.
A lot of people are going to be on board. I mean, whether or not we should be on board is a more philosophical question, but a lot of people are going to be on board. I agree with you. If I lived alone and I didn't want to have to buy a new 70-inch TV to have that cool home theater deal, I mean, I would have the greatest home theater there is, which is have the biggest screen right in front of you, and make it as big as you want or small as you want. Make it, engage at the same time with other video conferencing and all that, and gaming and all of that would be, I'm sure it would be incredibly cool. If I was an architect that worked, alone, or, in a kind of home environment, I would love this because I'd be able to actually manipulate things and have things in scale and see things in different ways. I think it's fantastic. If I was on Zoom calls all day and that's what I was doing, and you learn this, I think the Zoom call idea or the FaceTime idea here was great, right? You're experiencing those people in the room. My concerns, which I have a lot of them, but are one, is it a good thing to try to get to this environment, right? Or is it a better thing to go with a different version of Google Glass like we used to have, where it's just augmented reality as opposed to virtual? I worry about vision, right? Because if you put this thing on and are in this environment for hours and hours and hours a day, I mean, we already have a problem with our vision going bad because we're looking at, 16 inches away from us most of the day. So our eyes don't accommodate. That's why earlier Apple was making a push to get kids outdoors, because they wanted them away from their screens. They wanted their eyes to be able to, well, now you're saying we're going to put you in an environment where your eyes are going to focus 2 inches away all day.
I actually thought it was kind of funny that within 20 minutes of each other, there's an announcement
right back to it.
How to get people outside, away from screens and all that, and then now we're going to completely cover you in.
Now here's where the scientist in me says I'm super excited to see if they'll do this. Would be, there's no reason they can't force your eyes to focus at different distances in a virtual environment, given that they have the cameras pointed in. So yes, I'm looking at a screen that is 2 inches away from me. However, given that the camera is pointed at my eye and it's super fast, if the camera were to say, okay, we need to change your focus and we're going to blur out your screen and make your eyes change its focus, and then when it does, we'll give you a clear, all of a sudden it's forcing you to change your lens and all that. The problem is it's not going to be realistic. It's not going to be real world. And are we going to have screwed up eyes? We're going to have a lot more people with glasses that, have problems focusing in their older adulthood and all of that stuff. But that's a concern I have when we change. Sure. I mean, I had that same concern with the phone, but now we're talking about a more extreme, situation. But if you gave me one, would I use it and would I have a thrill using it? Yes. I'm super excited to see the tech. I've never been in a virtual environment. I've seen your experience through our podcast. I've never been in one. I've never put one on. So I've never experienced that.
There's two. Well, then my suggestions to you are you could do one of two things. You either wait and not get any virtual experience until you have a chance to use the Vision Pro when it comes out, or get your hands, or I'll let you use the Oculus I've got some point, because now at this point, if you get into Oculus or getting the other VR headsets before using this one, it is.
Well, you won't go back. You certainly won't go back.
You won't go back, and it's just worlds. You've set such a low threshold with the Quest. Look, the Meta Quest is a great device. It is 1/7 of the cost of the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
The difference is with the Meta Quest, that's probably the most popular VR helmet right now, other than the cost, is that the resolution is nowhere as good. When I put on the Vision Quest or the Quest, I can clearly see that I'm looking at pixels. I can tell this is a computerized pixelized screen I'm looking at.
Yep.
Any idea of it being a pass-through where I would be able to see the outside world, it does have a pass-through view where I could actually see past the glasses. It is a horrible view. It is not at all like
it's just giving you, shadows and general
just
ideas,
letting you
and all
see
that,
where
right?
things are, so you don't hit yourself on a piece of furniture. And also the VR experience now is still games and virtual experiences, but there's no application on there for actually doing any work. There's no application on there for video conferencing in a meaningful way. There's no application on there for taking photo and videos of what you're seeing in the real world. So right away, this Vision Pro is just leaps and bounds above anything we've seen. Is it worth 7 times the cost? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when we get our hands on it and try it out. But I'm impressed so far. My other big question, though, one thing I'm still, the jury's still out with me. What you're looking at right now, for those of you watching on video, just so everybody's aware of the way this works, because this kind of took me back a bit when I was watching the keynote. They're really intent on making sure that people who use this Vision Pro still feel connected with the rest of the world, which I think is a good, noble idea. This idea that, a couple things they do is that if you're in a virtual environment or virtual experience on the Vision Pro and somebody walks in up to you, they will appear kind of right away in your virtual, you're not shut off from them. Like with the Oculus or the Meta Quest right now, if I'm in a virtual world and somebody comes up and taps me on the shoulder, it scares you because you don't see them.
Yeah, no idea.
You don't know they're there. With this, it will let them in, so you will see that there are people near you and they're talking with you, which is cool. But it's the other side of the coin where it is showing them your eyes through the goggles. Now, when I first looked at this and when they first showed the keynote, I'm like, oh, wow. So they've got it to where it's like one-way glass type of thing. Where it's like you're actually seeing their live eyes and somehow lighting them up a little bit so you can see them. No, these are actual virtual impressions of your eyes.
It's an LED screen, right? It's an OLED screen on the outside.
Somebody's looking at a screen and they're seeing a video representation of your eyes.
Right.
You scan your eyes, you scan your face and everything when you set up this Vision Pro. So that's what it's showing you. Now, my question is this going to be super creepy looking? Are these going to be like static eyes that don't really show the same kind of emotion or impressions you're trying to give across? Is it just going to be weird, or are these things actually going to be pretty good representations of what your eyes are actually doing inside the goggles? So it's going to work.
I don't see why they couldn't, right? I mean, they're tracking your eyes. I don't see why
Right,
they
they're tracking it.
couldn't actually make your eyes move. I do worry. I mean, if it's static, that's going to become incredibly
and I don't think
freaky,
it'll be
right?
static. Static was probably the wrong word for it. But
Yeah.
even when they showed the demo, Brian, of FaceTime, which is where
Yep.
it is creating a truly virtual representation of your face,
Yep.
it looks pretty close. It looks good enough. But even watching the video of it just had a little bit of that uncanny valley look to it. And that's my fear with these eyes on the outside too, is that if it's very clear to somebody that, okay, that's not really their eyes, it's just not quite the same, that's going to throw a lot of people off, I think.
Yeah.
So,
someone mentioned,
I'm really curious.
I heard someone mention the Polar Express effect, right?
That was kind of where the whole uncanny valley kind of became a little more known, because the animation was so good, the faces were so good, but they're almost so good that because they're not perfect, you notice those imperfections so much more. Right. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm with you. I think this was a good move that they did it, because if they wouldn't have done it, then there would have been no kind of like, people would have argued, hey, now you're totally shut off from the world and all of that. This at least gave the impression that, hey, listen, if you come into the room and, so the weird part would be, I mean, if you think about it, Alan, the weird part would be if I wore this headset, you came in the room, and in my headset, I could see that you came in the room because it would allow that pass through, but you would have no idea that I could see you. That's where the real frustration starts to happen, right? Like you started going, hey, I don't know if you can see me or not, right? So the eyes would actually represent that, by the way, I can see you, right? When you can see my eyes, I can see you, right? And that's really helpful, I think, for the usability of this.
And that's what they said with the demo. Yeah, that's what they showed, is that it changes to your eyes when you're actually able to see the real world, and you could actually see somebody who came into the room.
Right.
If it's got a kind of almost like a screensaver looking thing going on, and you don't see the eyes, that is your sign to everybody else that I am closed off. I'm not seeing you by default. I think it's genius the way they map this out. It's all just going to come down to real world application with multiple people in your life. Does it work? I know they showed an example of it got some grief online, people kind of slamming Apple for an example in a video of a father with the headset on taking a video of his child's birthday, blowing out the candles on a birthday cake. And, of course, people were saying, well, that's, why would you shut yourself off or put something on that on your head when you're experiencing that? And I don't want to be the cynical other guy on the side of the coin here, but I've been to enough parties and things with my kids where I've been in front of a DSLR camera lens up against my head, or I've been on a phone and holding up and using as a camera. I don't see the difference. I'm like, I don't understand the difference.
Right.
If anything, I now have my hands free. I can actually clap happy birthday. I can, come up and hug. I can do other things that I couldn't do when I was holding a camera and holding a phone around to take the video of it. So I don't know, but there again, that's where those eyes are going to be so important, because I don't want to look up and see a kid doesn't want to look up and see their dad with just a blank expression on their face or whatever. But if they can see the eyes and they feel like they're actually,
and they know they're looking at you, and they know that,
and I'm like, okay, well, then that's actually kind of cool. That's actually better, I think, than taking photos another way. So
no, I think it can be good. It's just going to, I mean, for everybody that says there's no way this will happen and be mainstream, I think you're fooling yourself, right? I mean, it's the same thing. We've said it about many other things. There's no way, we would ever walk around with big, huge headphones on, right? Well, we do, we do. Right? Yeah. So there's lots of things that I think that have shown that this could be the case. So my thought is, and I know we definitely need to wrap up soon, but my thought is that the future of this is going to be really important. They've already set up the structure, which I think is really great. It's got the usability. I think if it continues to get smaller, if it continues to get lighter, if it continues to get more battery life, right now I think it's 2 hours battery life or something.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, as that starts to work from beta to version 2, version 3, version 4, I think you're going to find that they made, well, for one, they're going to be the player in town, right? I mean, they have all these patents that they put in place to make this work. Every other experience is going to be crappy compared to this one. Now, will people experience this because they can't afford it? Well, eventually they will. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think there's a big push that's going to happen, I think, in tech manufacturing, where people will use this as they work their day because they will see the instructions floating around as they're working with things. It's going to be really, really cool if you can afford it.
Yeah.
And I think that the single individual that has the cash to be able to do it up front and all of a sudden says, as you're right, I do not need a TV on the wall. Why would I need a TV on the wall when I can have my TV everywhere I am in this apartment? I think that's going to be useful. I still think there's going to have to be multiple versions of this in the future. Like there's going to have to be the entry version, which is just to watch movies and not do work or something like that.
Yeah,
Then
maybe
you
it
could have
doesn't
the family version, right? You know,
maybe it
then
doesn't
people are
interact with
watching.
your computer. It can't do any apps from your
Right.
computer. It's only for just true like VR, AR type experiences only. Well, and Brian, again, I don't want to sound pompous about this, but when the first Macintosh computer came out in '84, it was super expensive.
Yep.
And in today's dollars, I think it's like $7,000 or $8,000 or something like that. It's kind of nuts. Obviously, here we are, 40 years later, Apple did pretty good for itself with but the Mac computer, with every other device it's came up with. I get people say, yeah, it's expensive. And I agree. It is expensive. It's more expensive than I would like for it to be, but it's expensive. But I also think, if this is a product class where it is a true computing experience, if you don't actually need another computer, if you don't choose to have one, and you don't need a home theater system, and you don't need an entertainment system to play virtual experiences on, or all these other things, or if you use it as a work computer, all of a sudden you start putting all these use cases together. It starts to justify the cost. I'm not saying I'm happy with the cost, but I'm saying at least I feel like it's more justified than some other products I've seen Apple come out with where I'm just like, oh, why is that so expensive? They just jack that price up because they know they can.
Yeah.
Here, I mean, look, I just feel like there's so much technology here. I'm actually kind of surprised it's $3,500. I mean, it's still more than I want to spend for it, but man,
yeah, the price really didn't surprise me. The price really didn't surprise me that much because I also felt like this is round one for this thing and the people that are going to buy it are the people that are enthusiasts that are really going to buy into it. They're going to develop stuff. They're going to engage in it. If they want to make this thing a consumer experience in the future, it needs to get to a $1,000 price point. When it becomes $1,000 for you to buy one of these headsets that is limited in what it can do, but allows you to have some of these cool technologies. I mean, again, they're gonna make their money back now. They'll sell as many of these as they can make initially, and they're not gonna make that many. And then when they figure out all use cases and all the problems and all the quirks, and they start to hone it in, then there'll be the pro version and there'll be the entry version. The pro version will allow you to do so much. The entry version will allow you to have a lot of these cool things that get developed. And at that point, I think it's exactly right. You're going to see adoption that's going to happen. I still get nervous about what that adoption is going to result in our world, but at least I trust Apple in their motivations of this, right? I do trust them as a company not to say, cool, we're going to suck people in and get no social activity ever again. I think this is going to be hey, by the way, you don't need a computer. You need this thing, and you can take your computing wherever you want to go, and you can have everything you want. I mean, imagine just having this in a briefcase, and that's it. Like that's what you need, and that's it. And you've got your entertainment where you go. You've got your connection to video conferencing. You've got your work. I mean, that's the thing is like if we do it already, right? We get on a train and we put our head down in our laptop and we're not engaging with the world.
Right.
Well, this is going to be a way to engage in a more, vibrant world that happens to be there. But so anyway, I think there's some excitement. Like I said, it's got to get smaller. It's got to get cheaper. And once that happens in about 2 or 3 years, then I think it's gonna take off, and they will have destroyed the rest of the market of this type of opportunity. So
agreed.
Yeah,
I'll just say I'm a little giddy, looking forward to it. I've already put my plans in motion on how I'm going to pull this off and do it.
Have you already clicked the notify me button up in the top right?
So Brian, I really shouldn't say this on a public podcast here, but
nobody's still listening, so it's okay.
Maybe I actually think I've got a connection now with somebody Apple related that might be able to get me a good discount on such device. So seem like I can pull together on that. I'll keep everybody posted.
$34.99.
Yeah,
$3,499.
But just for the record, my boys, two of my boys that live at home were watching the keynote with me, and all three of us we started doing our calculations on how can we afford, all three of us, to get one of these. So
there's a massive piggy bank now in the house that everybody has to deposit in every day for the next couple of years. So
it's exciting. I'm very cool. Of course, I'm an early adopter on this stuff. I'm geeking out about it. I'm excited. I hear all the concerns. I hear all the questions. Will this be everything I want it to be? Probably not. I'm sure it's going to have some things that aren't going to work maybe as we hope or as advertised, but I'm still just amazed at the level of technology that's being announced with this, and cannot wait to try it out, hopefully in 6 or 7 months time. So yeah,
very cool.
All right, Brian. Well, look, we do need to wrap this up. We covered a lot.
We do.
Yeah. WWDC was a big one this year. So it was great. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait. Of course, all the iOS or system updates, the Mac updates are all going to be sometime this fall. We don't know a date yet, but they're all going to be free updates as long as you have a device that is relatively current and can support the new updates. The Vision Pro is supposed to be by what they say early next year.
Next year, right? Yeah.
Which early could be anywhere from January to June 30th.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
Don't know where it's going to be. I think realistically, we're probably looking at spring. If I had to guess, spring or early summer would be more realistic for it. They're going to keep building up anticipation until then. So we will definitely be talking about it in some way, shape, or form as it gets close to release, whether we have our hands on one or we just have to kind of feed off everybody else's impressions that gets it.
Or we'll just pretend, right? We'll make our own and pretend. Yep.
There you go. All right. Well, Brian, if anybody has their own thoughts about the system updates, the developers conference, or the Vision Pro headset, how can they get a hold of us and talk to us about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. No, you can email us at info@themesh.tv. It's info@themesh.tv. You can also go to our website, which we are kind of working to update as well, and start to kind of make our more Apple-centric version. It's www.brothers-in-tech.com.
All right.
All right, Alan, good to see you.
It's good seeing you too. Thanks for biding with us over a little bit of a break the last few weeks, but we are kind of happy to start getting back into the swing of things, especially focusing on Mac, Apple, and related technology as we go forward. So we will look forward to talking to everybody next time we get together. So thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, see, it has been a long time. I forgot what
it's been a long time.
Here we go. This is how we close out the show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.